عن جابر بن عبد الله الأنصاري عن فاطمة الزهراء عليه السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعيذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به، وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلألأ كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء، فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولد الحسين عليه السلام قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أماه، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جداه، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي وشافع أمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة، إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب ورئي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه. يا رسول الله أتأذنني أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومأ بيدي اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم، وعدو لمن عاداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. اجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذنب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيئا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال الأمين جبريل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبريل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبريل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدحية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبريل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال أبي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم مهموم إلا وفرج الله هما، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الأول بلا أول كان قبله والآخر بلا آخر يكون بعده الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية أمير المؤمنين وأئمة المعصومين عليهم السلام. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا طبيب نفوسنا مولا ومولى الثقلين محبوب رب المشركين جد الحسن والحسين أبي القاسم محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيت الطاهرين والمعصومين والمظلومين ولا الله على أدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم ومنكر ولايتهم وغاصب حقوقهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. All praise and glory to the exalted Almighty Allah, the most beneficent, the most compassionate of all, um, the sustainer of all the universes, and salam, greetings and praises to Prophet Muhammad and his progeny. Ladies, dear brothers and sisters, we gathered here tonight to remember and honor the family or the household of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and also what happened to his family and Abu Abdullah and their caravan. Um, in order to remember, I would like to go back about the majalis that we do, the gathering, and a little background about it as well. Um, the way it started once after the Karbala took place, and the family of the Mullah Hussain and the rest of the household of the Prophet was taken in prison. to Sham or Syria, modern day Syria. So once after they were in prison and later on they were released, that is the main part. Once they got released from the prison, Bibi Zainab Salamullah Alaiha asked Imam Zainul Abdin to demand to Yazid about three things, but I'm going to focus on one of them. Uh, or I would like to talk first about the one of the things, which is to ask or to demand Yazid to arrange a house for them where they could commemorate over the tragedy that took place. She did so. That was the very first, after the Karbala, that was the very first Majalis or Majlis that took place after the Karbala. And the two key essential parts that she started off with were Fazail, or honoring and glorifying and letting people know about the significance of the Prophet and his progeny, and increase the Muarfat of the Imam of their time. Because one of the main reasons that the people of Syria or Shami or took place, took part and aided Yazid against the Prophet's family was that they lacked. They did not have enough marifat of the family of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. All they knew basically was that they're the progeny of Imam Ali, who was portrayed pretty much as a demon who got rid of anybody who stood against him. That was basically the picture that was given to the Syrian people, because it was from the beginning, once they converted to Islam, it was ruled and managed and or governed by Muawiyah, and that's what the Umayyad dynasty did to feed people basically hatred against Imam Ali and his progeny. So most of the people, they did not had enough marifat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So that's one of the main essential reason even today when we have the majalis, one of the two key factors are fazail, which goes over uh, the honoring and significant, letting people know about the significance of the Ahlul Bayt, and to help increase the marifat about them, and also the masaib that took place, to mourn over what happened. Once we look at it, the same people, when, when first the caravan of the martyrs family arrived, whether in Kufa or specifically in Syria or Sham, the people gathered to celebrate and mock and humiliate them. The very same people 2 years later, when she held majalis, or when she started and had the gatherings at the house and acknowledged people and went over what they did, the same people that were mocking initially were the ones who were crying over the family of the Prophet Muhammad and Imam Hussain and his companions as the martyrs. What happened? What changed all of a sudden in 2 years? That the same people that were mocking, when they saw the heads on the spears, they were mocking and making fun of the people of the caravans. And now 2 years later, when they held the majalis, when they were getting released, the same people were crying over it. What made the difference was she started off letting people know. She introduced Al Bayt salam to the people and allowed them to understand, and she nourished them with the significance of the Ahlul Bayt and what they truly were as the representative of Allah, and their being as the guide for us. And that way, once they acquired the Muarfat, it allowed them to understand and feel what they had done, which also allowed them to have mournings over them as well. Because if you don't have knowledge about somebody, if you don't have understanding or marifat of somebody, you wouldn't care whatever happens to them. This is one of the reasons we have fadail and then the masail. That also helps us feel or have a more emotional bond and to help understand what happened and mourn over the Prophet's family and what actually happened to them and what sufferings they had to go through. And the main reason that she focused on the Marifat as well was not just for that time. We also need to uh, imply that to our time, that even we also need to do we need to increase our marfat for the Imam of our time, not as not just remember what happened in Karbala and before and with the other 11 infallibles or Imams. We also need to focus on our Imam, the Imam of our time. We need to have better understanding of what he is and how we can prepare ourselves for the Imam of our time during his occultation or his ghaibat. So we can prepare ourselves to hopefully, by the will of Allah, inshallah, we can join his army, or at the least, once he comes or reappears, our descendants could also join if we're not there. But in order to do so, we need to assure that we have good knowledge about him and his mission and better understanding of the Imam of our time, Imam al-Asr. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And so, one of the things is to have better understanding because we would, for instance, the reason I brought it up, if we don't have the marifat, like the people of the Sham or like the Syrian army, if we don't have the marifat of our Imam, we could end up being on the side of Dajjal or Antichrist when the Imam comes. Or, God forbid, our descendants, if we don't nourish our kids or our future generations with the marifat of the Imam and all the 14 infallibles, they may end up being on the side of the evil once the Imam comes. We need to make sure we do our part so they don't end up being on the wrong side, or we don't end up being on the wrong side like the Kufi people of the Kufa or the people of Sham did. So this also brings us to another thing that, like Hussein also asked me to go over the characteristics of the people as well. So I would try to cover those characteristics as well, the key characteristics that we need to have uh, in order to assure that we don't end up being on the wrong side. There are a number of traditions or hadiths from the Prophet Muhammad emphasizing on the end times or the time of reappearance of Imam Muhammad al-Mahdi alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. There is a specific reason why the Prophet Muhammad also emphasizes on the last Imam, because of the fact that no hur will be given one night time to make up his mind. Once the Imam comes, whether you will be on the righteous path or you will be on the evil side. There's no going to be in between. So if we happen to be on the wrong side, everything we do today will be doomed. Everything will be wasted if we end up on the wrong side, which is really important because everything we do can be done and over with if we. This is one of the reasons when we pray, we also pray, like, for instance, for us to be on the righteous path at the hour of death comes. Th- this is part of it because it does not matter as much what we believe today or where we stand today. What matters most is when the hour of death comes or when the angel of death comes to take our soul. At that moment where we stand, that is the most important part because on that part depends the life hereafter. So we need to make sure that we develop better understanding so we don't end up being on the wrong side because as I mentioned, what matters most is the hour when where we stand at the hour of death when the death comes. We need to make sure that we and our generations, our future or descendants, are not bribed. They don't end up being on the wrong side at the end times. And also, like, for instance, if we do end up, for God forbid, it would pretty much like what we do today is basically wouldn't do us any good at the end. For instance, people who were companions of the Prophet Muhammad and did not abide to the Imam after him, or Imam Ali alayhi salam, peace and blessings be upon them. Uh, those people who were companions of the Prophet, but ended up being on the opposing side of Imam Ali, did being with the Prophet Muhammad help them? No, it didn't. Because at the end, they were on the wrong side. And it goes same way for those like other imams. It is good and we have to understand and have marfat of the previous imams and previous representatives, whether it's the messengers, prophets, or the imams. We do have to know them and acknowledge them. But what is more important than anything is to have the knowledge and be on the side of the current Imam, the Imam of our time, regardless of what time we live in. Because there were people who were with Imam Hassan, the second Imam, but they went against afterwards. And same thing goes with Imam Hussain. There were people with Imam Hassan, but they went against Imam Hussain. So, did being with the Imam Hassan, Imam Ali, or Rasul Allah help them at all? Because at the end, they were on the wrong side when they were to die. So, being on the right side at the moment can be ruined if we make mistake on the future. This is the main reason also when we pray that we pray for us to be on the righteous path and to be on the side of our current Imam or the living representative of Allah at that time when the angel of death comes. So, the other thing now I would try to go over are um, the characteristics that we need to develop to make sure that we don't fall for the wrong side. Uh, and it's also in the Biharul Anwar, volume 5231, that Imam Sadiq, Imam Jafar Sadiq والسلام, goes over some of the general characteristics of the companions of the Imam al Asr. So, and one of the main ones that he highlighted was that those people in his companionship will be devout worshippers, especially by the nights, and they will be like the lions in the day. They will be more submissive and obedient to Imam like a maidservant. They are like burning lamps, and their hearts are like glowing beacons. They are fearful of Allah and testify to His unity. This is one of the key traits as well, especially Tawheed. Why Tawheed is one of the key characteristics, or having absolute Iman or Yaqeen uh, in Allah and His representatives, especially the Imam of their time, of our time. Because before the reappearance of Imam Mahdi, there will be Antichrist or Dajjal as well, and other uh, evil doings as well. There will be false Messiah. Like, for instance, Dajjal, he will claim to be the Messiah in the beginning. And once he gathers people over about it, that people start accepting him as the Messiah, then he will claim to be the Mahdi as well. Or he would claim to be Imam Mahdi as well. And then, at lastly, he will claim to be the God, Nauzubillah, as well. But that would be like the time when Imam Mahdi reappears, would be when he would start claiming to be the God itself. So we will be surrounded by hypocrisy of that time. And he will also, as we all know, I'm pretty sure you guys know as well about Dajjal, uh, that he will perform magics. Well, they say miracles, but I'm not going to say miracles because it's false. It's going to be magic. But he would perform magic to uh, deviate people into believing him. That's how he will also, even to the point that he will burn people and raise them back to life. So people can believe him once he's claiming. So you're, as being a moment at in that period of time, your iman, your faith has to be really strong to overcome and to be able to see the false Messiah and be able to differentiate that he's not the real Messiah, that he's the actual Dajjal. So we don't end up being on his side. That is also the other characteristics that it leads to, as the Imam Jafar Sadiq said, that their faith, well, they will be strong like iron, um, and they will be hard like stones, because they will be strong as iron and hard like stone. So Dajjal and his people would try to do everything they possibly can to manipulate people living at that time. People living at that time, needs, or the mu'mineen needs to be able to go through every hardship that is thrown on them from the evil forces. So they cannot be bribed, and they cannot be made or tortured into giving up. So they have to be really strong, like basically, like the example given by the Imam is they need to be strong like an iron and hard as the stone. It is not just the faith, but themselves needs to be strong as well. Yes, their faith has to be strong, which is the first thing that I mentioned, that their faith has to be strong. So is themselves and their character, and them being as a person needs to be really strong, because one of the main goal of the Imam al Mahdi is to not just get rid of the Dajjal and the evil forces. One of the main reason for Imam to reappear is to bring justice to the world, and also to establish the Sharia of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad on the whole planet, on the whole world. So one of the characteristics for his companions is to be a practical moment as well. How are they going to enforce the divine law of Allah if they, or if we ourselves do not comply and practice our faith? How are we going to enforce, or how are we going to get people to follow the way of Ahlul Bayt if we, or the Sharia of the Islam, if we ourselves don't practice it? So the people in the times of the Imam, they have to be practical believer, not just believer by their words. So they can also enforce and guide people to practice the faith. Salamat. And the other characteristic that I would like to mention is obedience. In order to do anything like in the way of Allah, one of the thing about Islam itself is submission to the will of Allah, or i.e., in other words, you have to be obedient to Allah and His messengers and the representatives or the Imams. So this is also one of the key factors or characteristics of the people, of the companions of Imam al-Asr. They have to be obedient. They will be obedient to the Imam uh, from their heart, and every word that Allah or the Imam says, they will act upon it. And also, obedience, for instance, when we talk about obedience, this is one of the reasons there hasn't been any previous Imam who did the Qiyam, or who launched it, or who launched such way that as the Imam al-Asr uh, will do in the future to establish the religion around the whole world. Why? When we look in the past from the traditions, there were people who came to sixth Imam and other Imams who would tell them, or who would ask Imam that we will reinforce with you, our whole tribe will back up with you, and you need to launch a revolution against the current tyrants, whether it was Abbasi dynasty or Umayyad dynasty or any other. Specifically, the one I'm referring to is the times of sixth Imam when he was asked by some people that why doesn't he take actions? Why doesn't he uh, go and go against a war, and there will be people with him joining his forces if he does. And the person, I kind of forgot the name who it was, who the one who was asking the Imam, he told the Imam, the sixth Imam Jafar Sadiq Islam, he told him to go sit on the oven, clay oven, and he's like, I'm talking to the Imam, I'm telling you or asking you to like get a reinforcement, gather people to join, and so we can launch against the um, Abbasi dynasty or Abbasi false caliph. Um, but the Imam is telling him to go sit on the oven, and so one of his other companion could burn the light or the fire on the oven, and he kept ignoring the question. He's like, I'll do whatever you ask me to. I'm asking for you to ask us or to give us permission to go on jihad as well. But Imam basically asked him three times to go sit on the oven. And then later on, one of his old companions came, and so Imam told him the same thing while he was walking towards the Imam. He told him to go sit on the oven, and he did. Once he went over, and then the Imam Jafar Sadiq Islam asked the other companion to lit the fire on the oven and covered it. And this person who had came asking the Imam to give them permission and to gather and form an army so they can go on jihad, uh, is sweating over it that what is the Imam doing? After a while, Imam opened the oven and asked him to come out. And then Imam asked him, do we have any, how many of people do you have that are obedient like him? Imam did it to show him that no matter how many supporters we claim that we have, we need supporters in order to launch a revolution to establish the divine kingdom. We have to people we have to have people obedient like him who would not question. There would once the Imam or the Allah says something, there is no ifs or buts. You act upon it. This is the kind of obedience the Imam needs. All the Imams needed, but they did not had such obedient followers. So they never actually launched a revolution to establish the divine kingdom with the whole Sharia around the globe. For instance, Imam Hussain, he only had handful of 70 obedient ones, the true obedient. Even Imam Ali, he had good companions, but none of them were obedient as like this example that they won't ask anything. You, as being a follower of an Imam or to have complete faith, we don't know. We have to leave everything upon Allah and its representative. We cannot judge or we cannot use our own limited intellect to judge what they're saying or what they want us to do. We have to have absolute faith in them So once they ask us for something, we don't question it or we don't back up. And whatever they want from us at a moment, we have to be able to give it up right away. For instance, the fellow, the companion who actually went in and sat in the oven, from an external view, his life was gone, but it didn't because he had absolute faith in the Imam. If that's what the Imam was, he did it. There was no whats or buts or like, why are you asking me to do this and that? If the Imam of the time says something, this is it. You have we as those who wants to be in the army of the Imam al Asr, we have to be obedient. How are we going to be obedient to Imam if we can't be obedient to our parents and other like instructors or teachers? So in this life, like in today's world, we can try to be obedient to our parents first. That way, we can be more obedient to Imam of our time, because this is one of the main and key essential characteristics of the people of the or the companions of the Imam al Asr. They have to be obedient to the Imam. They will face really like treachery and trickery, um, like the evil or the Satan. He will throw every possible thing against them to misguide them. So they have to be really strong and really obedient to make sure that they stick to the side of the Imam. This is main reason. Like also, we were talking earlier, like with Hussain. Uh, you know how they're saying that there are going to be 313. They're companions of the Imam al Asr. Those 313 are not ordinary. They will be the commanding officers. They will be like the generals who will lead people in the way of Imam. They will be ruled by the Imam himself, but they would also control and guide other people. There will be more than tens of thousands of people on the sides of the Imam as well. But there will be more people on the other side as well. There will be people on the Dajjal side or evil side as well. So we have to be really keen about our faith, our obedience. We cannot have any uncertainty in our faith. We have to be absolute certain about our faith in Allah and the Imams and the messengers, especially the last Imam, because otherwise we may end up failing to overcome the obstacles that will be thrown upon us by the evil forces. And as for the obedience, um, I would also like to talk about the obedience of Mawla Abul Fazl Abbas alayhi salatu wasalam. Um, he was raised. He was raised from the beginning with the concept that he has to support and fight next to Imam Hussein. He was taught, raised, and from the beginning, from everyone, whether his aunts or sisters, or even Imam Ali. If we look at it, Imam Ali prayed for him so he can be on the side of Imam al Hussain on the day of Ashura. The person who is raised from the childhood to be in the battle and to fight, from the childhood he was taught and raised that and told that he has to fight with Abu Abdullah to support him on the day of Ashura. And when the actual day comes, he is not given the permission to fight. How must he have felt at that moment? Have we ever thought about it? What he must have gone through when Imam Hussain salam did not allow him to actually go out in the field and actually fight. How, like, all his life growing up, his main aim had been to fight in the Battle of Karbala. He was raised that way. He was the wish of Bibi Sayyidatun Nisa al Alameen, Bibi Fatma Zahra. She asked for him, for a son like Imam Ali, to be on the side of Imam Hussain on the day of Ashura. It was one of her will to Imam Ali to have a child like himself that would aid her son Hussein on the day of Ashura. With all this, with knowing all this, growing up to be taught that you have to fight and support Imam Hussein, and when the actual day comes, you're told that you're not given permission, that you have to actually sacrifice yourself and you cannot fight. He did not say any word back to the Imam. He kept his head down and did what he was told to do. He obeyed what he was told to do, regardless of what he had been told all his life. That was one of his courage. Although being a valiant warrior, he was an obedient one, and he obeyed to Imam Hussein. Regardless of what he wanted to do, he did not question Imam. Why is he asking him to do that? Why is he not giving him permission? He obeyed instead. But if we think about it, we never felt the pain he must have gone through. If we want something and the time comes and our parents, our elders tells us that we can't do something, how do we feel? Broken heart, disheartened. What he must have gone through at that moment, we can't even imagine. Yet, regardless of anything, he did what he was told to do and obeyed to Imam of his time. And instead of fighting, he went to the river just to get the water and came or attempted to come back. And on the way, he was martyred. He did his every possible attempt. He did whatever he could to come back, but once he failed, he did not question the Imam why Imam didn't allow him to, because he knew no matter what, I have to do what the Imam wants me to do. That is the actual courage of Maulana Abbas. Being a valiant warrior is not as courageous as killing your own desires is. And this, again, is the main um, key essential characteristics, especially for our time, that we need to develop to be obedient, not just to our parents, but also to our imams and Rasul, and also Allah, to obey Him, to obey Allah, so we can be successful in our life, and hopefully pray that God or the Almighty Allah can allow us to be in the army of Imam al Asr when the Imam comes or when the Imam reappears. Salamat. I thought somebody muted me. Okay. Um, Now I would also talk about Imam Hussain alayhi salam and his sacrifice. If we think about the actual sacrifice of the Karbala, is the initial sacrifice was with the Hazrat Ibrahim and the Hazrat Ismail when he had to sacrifice his own son for the will of God or will of Allah. But it was postponed with a greater sacrifice, as we all know. The actual sacrifice in place of the initial sacrifice is the sacrifice of Shahzada Ali Akbar. Alayhi Um, when we look at it, um, Shahzada Ali Akbar, as we all know, one of the codes of Prophet Muhammad is that Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. That code, Hussein minni wa ana min al Hussein, that code is fulfilled in every aspect to the point that Imam Hussein's son Ali Akbar is like a carbon copy of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So, how hard it must have been for Imam Hussein knowing the love of a grandson to his grandfather, and especially not only the love between a grandchild and a grandson, grandson and the grandfather, but also being a faithful person, being a believer. Like, for instance, us, we as a believer have love for the Prophet and the Prophet's family. Acknowledging that part, the love as a believer, and combining it with the love that he had as a grandson for the Prophet, and knowing that, like, how much love he must have had for his son, who was a reminder for him of his grandfather or Rasulullah. He used to look at Shahzada Ali Akbar. He used to look at Shahzada Ali Akbar whenever he wanted to remember Rasulullah. And now, on the day of Ashura, he has to sacrifice that very son before his own eyes. How much pain he must have gone through when sacrificing, when allowing Ali Akbar to go on the battlefield. His own son, like, uh, being a son, those of us who have kids, you can understand better, we can understand better how much a father loves his own son. and the son, who is 18-year-old young adult, and he's the copy or duplicate of Prophet Muhammad. How much love that Imam Hussein must have, and how hard it was for the Imam al Hussein to send his beloved son Ali Akbar to the battlefield. When he was going, he followed, Imam Hussein followed Shahzada Ali Akbar on behind him and asked him to keep looking back so he can have the chance to see his son till the last moment. And once Imam allowed him to go, and once Shahzada Ali Akbar fought and came back, and then went back again to the battlefield, and being a student of Abul Fazl Abbas, he fought like a valiant warrior, but at the end, he also was supposed to be martyred. So he also ended up getting a spear struck in his chest and into his liver that he initially broke, but the actual head of the spear was struck in. And once he fell down on the ground, he cried for Abdullah, for his father. He actually greeted and sent salutations upon his father. And once the Imam heard his son's call, he attempted to walk towards him, but he ended up falling because he could hardly see. He pretty much lost his sight at the moment, knowing that his son is about to be martyred. He's about to depart from this world. Yet the Imam took hold of himself, controlled himself, and got on his horse, and rode towards Ali Shahzad Ali Akbar. Once he got to Ali Akbar, he, he found him to be still alive, but Shahzad Ali Akbar was covering his chest with his arms. And when the Imam got down and took his head and put it on his laps, and then Imam saw the pain on the face of his beloved son, and he asked him where was he struck, and then the Shahzad Ali Akbar showed or let his hands go, and then Imam saw the head of the spear on his chest, and then he tried to comfort his son in his last moments that he his sufferings would soon end and that he will be able to drink water from the Holy Kauthar soon. And then at that moment, Imam saw Prophet Muhammad and his father Imam Ali standing, and he looked upon them, and then the Imam turned to his grandfather when he saw his spirit, and he said to his grandfather Rasulullah, my grandfather, be witness that I did not cover my eyes like our father or our great grandfather Abraham did. Be witness on the day of judgment that I bear witness with my open eyes of my beloved son to be suffering like this and to be martyred soon. And then when he saw that they turned away from the Imam, and he inquired, "O father and my grandfather, why are you turning away from me at that moment?" And the Imam and the Rasulullah replied that, "O our beloved son, you're the one who agreed to go through this sacrifice. We did not take the oath." And that moment, Imam Hussein felt soft hands on his shoulder, and he heard the voice of his mother, Lady Fatma Zahra Salamullah alaiha, saying to him, "O my son, I have been to the each and every person you went to pick up from the battlefields. I have been with you right next to you, and I am still with you on this. Take firm hold of it and call the ism of Ali and take the spear or the spear of the head of the spear out." And then the Imam grasped onto the head of the spear and had to, and then he said, "Ya Ali," and took the head out, and on the lap of Imam Hussein, he witnessed his son shaking in pain, like when you take a fish out of water. That's how he was splattering over till he took his last breath, and his and the soul of Shahzada Ali Akbar departed. Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un.
If you're ready.
Is it me now? اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد صل على محمد وآل محمد. So we're gonna start inshallah Latmiya, and I'm just gonna try to slow down. Sometimes the voice gonna cut off. Ya Allah. يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار، يراوين الحريق ويركض فرسان، ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان، يركض للنهار يركض للنهار، يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار، يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار، يراوين الحريق ويركض فرسان، ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان، يراوين الحريق ويركض فرسان، ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان، يركض للنهار يركض للنهار يركض للنهار. المن عايش بلا ناس، شخيلة كربلاء بناسي، أدين الوايرد واشتم بيه، وشي ما ينحرك بأنفاسي. المن عايش بلا ناس شخلت كربلاء بناسي. أدني الوارد واشتم بيه وشي ما ينحرق بين فاسي. المطار والحر الفي والليل كل شي دغدغي احساسي. اش ما القي رميح فارق اقيل ليلو قلك راسي. اقيل ليلو قلك راسي. ياهو اللي يقدر واشلع على العيون يشبعني بكي مثل اللي يشبعون. ياهو اللي يقدر واشلع على العيون يشبعني بكي مثل اللي يشبعون. وصلي الى دهار يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار. يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار. يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان ضحك 70,000 وتغيب نسوان. يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان ضحك 70,000 وتغيب نسوان. يركض للنهار يركض للنهار. شكثر مري الصبيح بالناس شكثر مري الصبيح بالناس. وانا ولا صبيح مارني صباحي خيام محترقه. ومسيتي حسين توجعني. شكثر مري الصبيح بالناس وانا ولا صبيح مارني صباحي خيام محترقه. ومسيتي حسين توجعني. وليلي ويل ضعين مشدود ياخذني ويرجعني. اشوف وين غاف يعلن نوق ويني الفاز اللي بجفني. واظل اركض واصيح هنا يلضعون ولا نبطل ولا هم يسمعون. واظل اركض واصيح هنا يلضعون لا نبطل ولا هم يسمعون. وكبرني السهار يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار. يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار. يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان ضحك 70,000 وتغيب نسوان. يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان ضحك 70,000 وتغيب نسوان. يركض للنهار يركض للنهار يركض للنهار يركض للنهار. إيه أنا أكثر بشر بالكون. يا الله. وأنا أكثر بشر بالكون. قايل كلمتي اسم الله لين مني الصبح لليل يبكي براسي عبد الله. أنا أكثر بشر بالكون قايل كلمة اسم الله. لأن مني الصبح لليل يبكي براسي عبد الله. داعية حر ظهور عاشور ودموعي حسين من صلى. همت فاير هدا ومثلي أهل سبعينهم غفلة. أنا لهاضمني وموشل ديم العين شيل نسوان بنص الدواوين. أنا لهاضمني وموشل ديم العين شيل نسوان بنص الدواوين. مو يمهل قمار يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار. يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان. ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان. ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان. يركض لي النهار يركض لي النهار. خلصت العمر مسجون أنا ودمعي واهاتي. نفيسها حسين لو حسين ما متغيرة كلماتي. خلصت العمر مسجون أنا ودمعي واهاتي. نفيسها حسين لو يا حسين ما متغير كلماتي. اللي هسه النوق دمي تسيل يمين نمتون عماتي. ومن قد ما أصفين بيهن حمر مصبوغة دمعاتي. وادورهن واشوف الضاعن والحقهن واوصل واختفن والنوب ادورهن. ادورهن واشوف الضاعن والحقهن اوصل واختفن والنوب ادورهن. يتمن القدار يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار يراوين الحرق وركاظ فرسان. ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان يراوين الحرق وركاظ نسوان. ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان يركض من النهار يركض للنهار. من كثرين هضم مخنوق وابوق اني في الصاير بوق. ما بيني الدمع والآه وشلوني وقلب محروق. من كثر الهضم مخنوق وابوق اني في الصاير بوق. وما بيني الدمع والآه وشلوني
وقلب محروق. أنام بدمعتي على حسين وأفيزي وتسرح براسي النوق. كل شي بدنيتي يغيثني ولا أكثر من أشوف السوق. أطيح جنازة بين الغربة وانشال من اسمع عمارة حشملها رجال. أطيح بغربة بين الغربة وانشال من اسمع عمارة حشملها رجال. ترى همي كبار يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار. يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار يراوين الحارق وركاظ فرسان. ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان يراوين الحارق وركاظ فرسان. ضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان. يركض للنهار يركض للنهار. المن عايش بلا ناس شخيلت كربلة بناسي. أدني الوايريت واشتم بيه وشي من حارق بين فاسي. مطار والحيار الفي والليل كل شي دغدغي احساسي. اسمع الغير رمح فارغ اقيل ليلو وقلك راسي. ياهو يقدروا اشلع على العيون يشبعني بكي مثل اللي يشبعون. ياهو يقدروا اشلع على العيون يشبعني بكي مثل اللي يشبعون. وصلي له دهار يومي القهار يرسم لي نحار ويراوين الحريق وركاظ فرسان. وضحك 70,000 وذغيب نسوان. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, do you have anyone who's going to read the dua for us? اللهم صل.
What about the ziyarat as well?
First she's playing.
السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. يا حسين يا غريب يا حسين يا سليم يا حسين يا وحيد يا حسين يا شهيد.
Okay, now.
Is it Ziyarat Ashura or is it Ziyarat Warith?
I can do both.
The one will be enough because both of them kind of a little bit long, and I would rather to do Ziyarat Ashura. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know about the rest, but Ziyarat Ashura is is a time for it.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because Ziyarat Warisa is slightly smaller than the Ziyarat Ashura.
Yeah, but it's Ziyarat Ashura. Ziyarat Warith is kind of a little bit smaller. That's true, but we don't
Okay.
have to do the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Let me do. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Ibn Rasulullah. السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد المسين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا سار الله وابن ساره والبدر موتور. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك إليكم مني جميعا. سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد أتمت الرزية وجلت وزمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وزمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعل أمة أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعل أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعله أمة قتلتكم، ولعله المؤمنين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سلمكم وهرب لمن هربكم إلى يوم القيامة، ولعله على زياد وعلى مروان، ولعله بني أمية كاتبة، ولعله ابن مرجانة، ولعله عمرو بن السعد، ولعله شمرة، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت والجمت وتنكبت لقتالك بأبي أنت وأمي، لقد أزم مصاببك. وأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني أن يرزقني طلب سارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني إنك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بمعاناتك وبالبراءة ممن أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم ولا أشيائكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وتقرب الله ثم إليكم بمعاناتكم ومعاتي وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناتبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سلمكم وهرب لمن هربكم وولي لمن ولكم وعدو لمن آذاكم. وأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة ويثبت لي إنكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله ويرزقني طلب سارك مع إمام ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يؤتيني بمصابكم أفضل ما يؤتي مصابا بمصيبته مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظمها رضيت في الإسلام في جميع أهل السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقام هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محيا محمد وآل محمد ومواته ومات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تباركت به بنو أمية وابن أكلات لك بعد الليل ابن الليل على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وكفى في نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم أنا بسفيان ومعاوية يزيد بن معاوية الهم منك اللعنة عبد العابدين وهذا يوم فرحت بها الجهاد وعلى مروان بقتلهم الحسين عليه صلوات الله عليه وآله. اللهم فضائف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي كل موقف هذا وأيام حياتها وهذا وأيام حياتي وبالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالمعاقة لنبيك وعلى نبيك عليهم وعليهم السلام. اللهم أن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له ذلك. اللهم أنا ثابت التي جهدت الحسين عليه السلام وشاهد وبايد وتعب على قتله. اللهم نحن جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الوالي التي أهلت بفنائك عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت بكي الليل والنهار ورجع الله آخر الأخذ مني لذاتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللاني مني وابدأ به أول ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لن يزيد خامسة والأنا عبد الله بن زياد وابن مرجانة وابن بن سعد وشمرة وعلى أبي سفيان وعلى زياد وعلى مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رضيتي. اللهم ارزقنا شفاعة الحسين عليه السلام يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بتعالوا مواجههم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
Guys, I know you're pretty eager to get off here, so I just have to say something really quickly. It's obviously the first time we've done this, so thank you guys so much, Sarah. Thank you for having all the videos ready. Inshallah, we'll post in the group chat what went well and what did not go well, in your perspective and your opinion. And then inshallah, if we do this again, then we'll have a more efficient way of doing it.
Inshallah.
Before we cut out, one more. Before we cut out, just a second. Let me do another. I will do a short Ziyarat Imam Zaman al-Islam as well.
Allahumma kun.
Besides, well, that too. Allahumma kun li waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka wa ala abahi fi hadhihi sa'at wa fi kulli sa'at waliyan wa hafizan wa qa'idan wa nasiran wa dalilan wa ayna hatta tuskinahu ardaka taw'an wa tumatti'a fiha tabila. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad.
Ya Allah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
يا السلام عليك يا صاحب الأسر والزمان ألمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليك يا إمام زماننا هذا أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل له مخرجك وظهورك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على محمد.
Thank you, Ahsan Bilal.
Sorry, Bilal, I keep thinking you're done and then you keep talking. But that's okay, that's my fault. No, that's my fault. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I did record this. I will upload it. I don't know if I really want to send it out. I don't know. Because when you start sending things out, you don't know who's going to see them. But I do have the recording saved, and so we'll see what happens.
Just send it to us. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I can just send it to you guys or whatever. I'll just send
All
it.
right, thank you.
Okay.
Jazakallah
Thank you
khair.
so much.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.